right, let me see. I think we're live. If so, cool. If not, then wait a couple seconds and we'll be live. All right, everybody, what up? Welcome to the Walk of Shame. It's your man Ant Walker here to talk about the UFC event in Mexico City. What a disappointment of a main event that was, man. I think anybody with half a brain that has any of their attention focused on mixed martial arts or combat sports, period, was excited to see Yair Rodriguez and Jeremy Stephens. That's definitely one of the better action matchups you can imagine for featherweight. Then on top of that, it has a lot of relevancy to what happens with the future of that division, considering their rankings. I guess the MMA guys just weren't feeling us today, because I feel like I've been robbed, man. I've been robbed of an experience. That was going to be a great fight, and it was stripped from us to see the number 7 and number 8 ranked featherweights in the world not actually fight, despite getting in the cage and actually throwing some blows at one another. So, of course, an accidental eye poke ends the fight with a no contest. I didn't catch the time, but it had to have been easily within the first 20 seconds, if I'm not mistaken there. If not, go ahead, kill me in the comments, let me know what that time was. But Jesus Christ, man, what an absolute disappointment. What a disaster. So first, let's just go ahead and get this out the way, because I know a couple fools out there will be going on this path, and I'm not having it. We will not be doing that sort of fighter slander on this show or any other platform that I'm associated with. If you think Jeremy Stephens in any way, shape, or form quit, if you think he wanted an out, if you think he didn't display enough heart or toughness, or he should have just fought it out or whatever, you are several steps past being a complete fucking moron. It's the only way to put it, man, because that, while it may not have looked like much as far as the replay, where it just looked like a kind of like a graze across the eye, you have no idea what that would actually feel like. And for people who do train and stuff, things happen. Like, I can remember one sparring session, boxing, and taking a punch directly to the eye, and how it's so disorienting. Imagine if that, without those fingers being covered, just that raw finger raking across your eye, shit's gotta hurt, man. So when we think back to even last week, we had that situation with Todd Duffy and Jeff Hughes, and despite Todd Duffy having a lot of success in that fight, and at a moment where he looked like he was in control of the action, where he says, hey, he can't continue anymore, he's seeing double, and the people were out there killing him. Don't do it this time. Again, please. Now, I know somebody out there is going to disappoint me. I'm sure my timeline is going to be loaded with a bunch of dummies saying dummy things. But let's get that all the way the fuck up out of here. Jeremy Stephens did not quit. Jeremy Stephens did not want to out. The man got blinded by an accidental eye poke. So let's get that out the way. So shout out to Cole Shelton, the Judas of Sherdog himself, who was on the chat saying, so given Zabir and Qatar is off UFC Boston, how about Yair and Stephens as the new co-main? I'm not mad at that. I mean, they do need to just rebook this fight. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want to see this fight based on what we saw or didn't see this evening. I guess that's a serviceable enough co-main. I mean, it's a damn good co-main, but think about how much of a letdown that's got to be for both guys to now have, especially for Yair, who is from Mexico, who's born in Mexico, raised in Mexico, fighting in Mexico, in a main event in the UFC, and now he's got to take that energy to Russia. Jeremy Stephens, who is half Mexican, I believe, and I know they tried to play up his Mexican heritage a bit on some of the promo packages. Didn't exactly go too far. Clearly, the Mexico City crowd was not buying it, the way they booed the hell out of him and called him everything but the child of God when the fight got called off. But that's got to be a major letdown. And then also, let's keep in mind too, I just saw this scrolling across my timeline not too long ago, but Stephens spent like 30 grand for his training camp for this fight to train at high altitude, live in Mexico, somewhere in mountains, and training as hard as he could for this. And now you got to move that to Russia. Man, I don't. I like the fight being there just as is. because you have two featherweight fights that are topping the card. And, of course, now we've got Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski announced as one of the title fights for UFC 245 in Vegas, December 14th. So, yeah, it's a lot of relevant things moving on at featherweight, and it would be a shame if an accidental eye poke were to stop the progress of Stephens or Yair when they have great name value, when they have a lot of entertainment value, and they're both ranked in the top 10. That would kind of be a shame. But it sucks that it would be in Russia if that's the scenario that plays out due to what happened. I mean, I do want to break down some of the actual technique and stuff that happened, but not much happened, man. We did see immediately that Yair has a ridiculous speed advantage. We also saw that Jeremy Stephens was able to touch his chin. So, if anything, that might just whet the appetite even more for this fight. So when it goes down, it'll be something to behold. We just hope that it actually is a fight and not whatever this was. So, yeah, shout out to all the homies on Press Row that were dodging beer as the crowd lost their shit. That's amazing. Anyway, back to the chat. Tommaso Mark, what's up, my man? Happy that you're back joining for another walk of shame. Says, Ant, my brother Yair messed up my money. I bet on Stephens. Hope whoever he fights next finishes him. Obviously kidding. Yeah, man, I'm telling you, betting on fights is a dangerous proposition. I have only bet on one fight my entire life, and that was Brock Lesnar and Shane Carwin, and I bet Shane Carwin was going to finish him. And we know what happened there. But we also know my prediction was almost there. Still lost my $10 though. So yeah, I don't like betting on fights, man. There's too many variables. It's too many things that you can't account for. I know between the split draw with was that Brandon Moreno and Oscar Oskarov, and the no contest in the main event, man, the staff picks were decimated as far as what winners and losers there were among the Sherdog staff. So, but yeah, man, don't bet on fights. Just don't do it. Pierce Hobbs saying, imagine paying for a ticket. Yeah, imagine paying for a ticket. I mean, but let's be real, man. This was an amazing event. Granted, it wasn't the best on paper, but for the Mexican fans, Mexican combat sports fans are among some of the most loyal to their country that you could ever imagine. And they really got a good show. Got some spectacular finishes, got a lot of really exciting fights. They got to see their countrymen make a difference in the UFC. And, and the UFC's been trying to get some serious Mexican names in the rankings and whatnot, and now you kind of see it coming to fruition. Of course, the culmination of Yair Rodriguez arrival into the elite of featherweight kind of got derailed there, and the chance for Jeremy Stephens to maintain his relevancy also shattered. So that sucks. But Pierce Hobb also saying he swiped at his face, though. He did swipe at his face, but however, his eyes are on his face. The replay very clearly shows the finger raking across the eye, or appear to touch the eye. Now, we should know this about Jeremy Stephens. That is a very, very, very tough man. That is a man who will walk through hell to do what he wants to do. So I think of all the personality types in the UFC, I mean, he's one of the last people that we want to even hint at questioning how much he wanted to be there, or question how much his heart was in that fight. The fact that he spent that much on his training camp, the fact that he lived in what had to be just straight up discomfort to live and train at high altitude away from your family. And he's as far as I can remember, I think he's a man with wife and kids. And trust me, being away from your wife sucks a lot. So yeah, man, there's no, I don't want to imply in the slightest bit that there was anything he could have done differently to continue fighting, other than unnecessarily putting his safety at risk, even more so considering that he is a cage fighter for a living. Like, if you can't open your eye, if your eye seriously will not open and it is actually spasming, according to what Herb Dean said, I don't think I don't think we can really point the finger at him, man. We can't. That's an involuntary response. Shout out to Herb Dean for trying his best to keep this going. Let's not forget that. Herb Dean has been taking a lot of bad vibes lately. From the Askren and Robbie Lawler fight and a couple others that he didn't get right in the moment. Apparently, he tried his best to do this one right. I think Herb Dean has got his street cred back, as far as I'm concerned, with the way he handled this, trying to make sure that the last resort was to stop this fight, that the first resort was to allow Jeremy Stephens to potentially feel better so this fight can continue fairly. I think that right there earns Herb Dean his street cred all the way back. I'm very happy with what he did, even if it was futile in the end. All right. So Rob Ahmed saying running back and the UFC should not return to Mexico. Hey, you know what? By the way the crowd behaved throwing things into the cage, I mean, that is something to consider. But at the same time, man, we've seen bad behavior like that in the United States. I was in Vegas for UFC 229. Definitely remember some of my colleagues coming back to the media room with stains on their clothes because they were dodging beer. Okay, we've seen behavior like this at sporting events everywhere, of every sport, in every country, every nationality has participated in it. So let's not paint the brush broadly for Mexico. They got a good show until they didn't. Let's put it that way. All right, now I don't really think there's much else to say about the main event. Run it back with those two, and we'll see where the chips fall. Not really much to analyze outside of that. So let's talk about this co-main event. Carla Esparza defeats Alexo Grasso by split decision. I scored this fight for Carla Esparza. I scored it 29-28 for her. If you had it the other way, I am not mad at that. One thing though, this was not a robbery. This was a very close fight. I gave rounds 1 and 2 to Carla Esparza. I gave round 1 to Carla Esparza because while there was a couple of moments that excuse me, I had to take a sip of my beer. There were a couple of moments in that first round that Grasso got the better of her on the hands. Esparza spent a lot of that round in top control. And on top of that as well, like, the moments that she had in the first round were only moments, and they may have looked kind of dramatic, but I'm sorry, a couple isolated punches that land pretty good, don't compare to that amount of top control, and also to the fact that Esparza was landing her own shots. Now, of course, as the fight went on, and Esparza had a harder time getting it to the floor in that third round, really, where I think Grasso won, and she started piecing her up pretty good. But that hadn't started yet. It really hadn't started yet. So second round, I think, was very, very, very clearly Esparza. I mean, she took her down and just kind of had her way with her for the majority of that. And the third round, Esparza had much more trouble getting that fight to the floor, and Grasso was able to handle her with the hands. But here's a very important thing. Now, I picked Esparza to win this fight, and 9 times out of 10, if we're talking about someone who's known for a striking background and we're talking about someone who's known for a wrestling background, I typically will pick the wrestler. And I think there's plenty of evidence to show that is normally the safer bet. Now, one thing that the wrestler can do to disrupt the striking, besides just the takedown, is just having okay striking. If you can land, as a wrestler, land a couple of good punches here and there, and then that striker knows that the takedown is coming, it can cause a whole lot of confusion. A whole lot of confusion. And I think that's what Esparza took advantage of, because even when Grasso was having her moments with the hands in that last round, she really wasn't totally unleashing. She wasn't in there really getting in her bag. She really wasn't. She did what she could in that moment, and what she felt comfortable doing. Now, of course, as the fight got closer toward the end, then we start seeing Grasso kind of open up a little bit more. But yeah, it just wasn't it wasn't like Grasso just unleashed completely and just put a striking clinic on in that last round, because at least she had the threat of the takedown. She had to respect Esparza's striking, so they did cause some moments of hesitance. But I think a great performance by both of them. Like, Carla Esparza is somebody who I think is perpetually underrated, because her time as the best strawweight in the world was really short. It was very short, and it paled in comparison to what her successor, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, ended up doing at her expense. The image of Joanna just totally dismantling Esparza, I think, has just stayed with us. Esparza's she's still doing it. She's still pretty damn legit. And Grasso, despite coming out with an L on her record, showed herself to be someone that we need to be paying a lot more attention to. We already were paying attention to her, but she really showed her worth tonight. And what an amazing fight. Both of them showed a lot of heart, a lot of back and forth, great skills from a technical standpoint. Like, everybody was on point, and they did what they do. That's sort of the best sort of fight you can ask for. A fight where both athletes are at the highest level of what they do, and they both get to showcase what they do. I was loving that fight, loving every second of it. All right, so let's get back to the chat here. Designated member. Oh, what's up? Designated member, who is a frequent guest on the Trenches, the SureDog.com live chat show that I do every Wednesday on that site's YouTube channel. Dropping in the chat saying, why is every Mexico show such a catastrophe? You know what? I think, although this wasn't really the case this time, normally the Mexico shows, at least the Mexico City shows, aren't that spectacular typically, or crazy, or whatever, bizarre, because of the altitude, because it's like the most polluted city in the world that rests so high above sea level. So you just have the makings of a bad fight, especially when you put heavyweights there. Like, it is custom made for a bad fight to take place if it goes a distance. Now, that seemed to not be the case tonight. We saw some good stuff, but of course it ended with Modelo being thrown in the cage. So take that for what it's worth. And I hope they weren't throwing Modelo Negra. That's some good beer. That is good beer for the price point, and it would be a shame if that were wasted because someone got poked in the eye. So I see a lot of people in the chat insisting. Did I say insisting? Oh, I'm super trash for that. Insisting, pronounce that correctly, that Alexo Grasso won. And I see some people very adamant about that. I am not upset with that at all. I'm not. There's enough. Like, if you gave the first round to Grasso, as I stated my case earlier, I disagree. But I'm not going to fight you over it. I'm not going to die on that hill. Third round and the second and third rounds were very clear. The first round is the one that's really up for debate. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying it's a close fight, saying either person would have won, and Esparza ended up winning. And I think that's just because the consistency that she showed in that first round. All right, let's see what else we got. Oh, man, I knew somebody was going to jump in here saying something stupid about Jeremy Stephens. No, that's not tolerated, my guy. Come on now. I would suggest to the gentleman calling Jeremy Stephens a pussy in the chat, I would suggest you say that to his face. I have a feeling your ideas will change drastically. All right. Hugo Allen Ross saying, say hello to Bellator Yair. Come on now. Yair Rodriguez, if anything, this should embolden the UFC to back Yair Rodriguez. The amazing ovation he got coming into that cage the reaction of the fans, however distasteful it may have been, that they didn't get to see this fight. The response that they gave Yair when he stood on the cage and, gestured apologies to the crowd. If anything, this should embolden the UFC to promote Yair Rodriguez even more. This should embolden them to come back to Mexico with Yair headlining that card. I think that case has been very, very clearly made. All right, Cole Shelton saying, what do you make of UFC 243? Mostly a boxing card where the main event is a huge fight. Other than that, not a ton of great fights. Quinta Hooker is all right, but not a co-main of a pay-per-view. I agree. I do agree, but we'll get back to that. We'll talk about some other stuff afterward. But yeah, I do agree with that. That card is not spectacular on paper. So let's see here. What else we got? All right, so we'll talk about this Brandon Moreno and Askarov fight. That was a great fight. That was a great fight. I am totally okay with a split draw. For the record, I had it 29-28 Brandon Moreno. Yeah, so if I'm remembering this correctly, because I took piss poor notes watching this fight. I was doing a little bit of multitasking. But anyway, I think Askarov, he came in this fight undefeated. Came in as the former ACB flyweight champion, if I'm not mistaken. And he must not have faced some really good strikers, or maybe some strikers with some bad takedown defense or something, because his plan devolved very, very quickly. I'll give him all the credit in the world for being tough, for being able to stick it out and eke out a draw in that scenario. But man, it seemed like he was asking for a loss, man. It was like he had no answer once the fight did not go to the floor. And I'm, I don't want to I don't want to paint the same Khabib Nurmagomedov brush, because Askarov is from Dagestan. I don't want to paint that brush, but it's very hard to ignore the similarities. This looked to me like an early Khabib, like not as good, of course, but an early Khabib. A guy who, despite the fact that he is woefully deficient on the feet, would be able to take you down. As long as he was able to get a pinky across any part of your body. That would be enough for him to grab you and throw you down. So I picked him initially to win this fight, because I thought that might be enough. Like, Brandon Moreno has definitely shown some good things, and I don't want to disparage the man at all, but I think his UFC run wasn't exactly gangbusters there. It was okay. It was okay. But it didn't really stand out to me. I think this was a guy who had the UFC not decided to bring back the flyweights, I don't think he's a guy we would have paid much attention to. And that might not be fair. He's a good fighter, and he definitely put on an exciting performance, and he's a dynamic athlete and whatnot. But I don't think this is a guy that would have been. I do remember the initial outcries when he was cut, but he was on a 2-fight losing streak, so it's like, all right, you could kind of understand it. But yeah, I don't know what this means for him. He's definitely gotten better. So we'll see what's next. And I know some of you guys have started matchmaking already, because you always do. And I do appreciate it, because that's one thing I'm not always the best at. I don't always do the matchmaking right away. It's normally something I sit on unless a matchup really stands out to me. Let's see here. We'll go back to the chat. Should have blown in better gloves. That'll be cheapskates. Moreno Askarov should get a sequel. Rob Iman again with some good bit of matchmaking there. Like I like the idea, because hey, it was a draw. Why not? I can understand if you're either one of those guys not really wanting to run it back because you almost lost. For Askarov, at least he still remains undefeated His record is no longer unblemished. So do you want to take that chance again with Moreno? Do you think you'll be able to close some of the holes, like clear, gaping, ridiculous holes that you can drive a truck through in your striking to face Moreno again? I don't know. But I do think this is another thing where did altitude play a factor? And I don't know where Askarov trains. I don't know if he is some mountainous region or whatever, where he resides now. But, you know, he did look winded toward the end. I wonder if Mexico City got to him. Just wonder. Just a thought. Designated member saying, didn't think Moreno had it in him. Great performance from a previous unstoppable grappler. I just did not see Moreno having a performance like that. I really didn't see it, especially against that style of fighter. I did not see it happening that way, but it did. So shout out to him, man. That was excellent work on his part. In fact, let me go ahead and I'm doing this all wrong here. I need to bring this pop-up window to the chat over here, so I'm not too all over the place. Trying to make sure that I'm able to read your comments as we go along. So sorry about that. Just make sure that my setup is better, because I just kind of turn everything on and just start going. So you know how I get sometimes. All right, what else we got here? Hugo Allen Ross and thinking, me too. I was thinking like 125-pound Habib. And that's, I mean, as oversold as that is, I don't think there's any better comparison. That comparison exists beyond the fact that they're Dagestani grapplers. It's the fact that the way they grapple, the way they smother and they stick to you. But this version of Moreno and Askarov are going to give a lot of people a lot of fits. So when they can move on from one another, they're probably going to terrorize the remaining flyweights. All right, so Cole saying the UFC just announced Esparza versus Grasso was fight of the night. I don't agree with that. You know what? I do agree with that, and I see designated member jumping in there saying Askarov and Moreno was better. I'm not mad at that. Again, it's a thing about taste, but Esparza and Grasso seem like higher level MMA to me. That seemed like much higher level MMA. So Askarov and Moreno was a fun, exciting fight, but we saw just terrible, terrible striking from Askarov. You saw when he could not get the takedown, being completely and totally helpless. We did not see that with Esparza and Grasso. We saw both of them give each other some work on the stand-up, give each other some good hits, some solid shots, and they had to remain honest with one another on the feet. But, of course, Esparza being such an incredible wrestler, but she got caught in some submissions. Grasso, had she had a little more time, I believe it was in the second round where she snatched that armbar at the very, very end, we might be talking about a submission. Let's not even, and let's also talk about that Gumby arm submission, that the second armbar in the third round, where she hyperextended her elbow. And Esparza was able to fight out of it and then start throwing punches with that same arm. So, man, I don't think, I can't overlook that for fight of the night. I simply can't. We saw higher level MMA. We saw near finishes. We saw variety in what they were doing. We saw well-roundedness in both fighters. And it's the more relevant fight as far as what the futures of the division say. Definitely a more relevant fight. Now, if you're in the camp that the lesser-known guys should get the performance bonuses, I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that at all. I want all the fighters to make more money, especially the guys on the lower cards. But I do think you can just give separate awards for the prelims and the main card. Whether the UFC is too cheap to do that or not, or is another story, but that makes a lot of sense to me to do it that way. All right, I need your help, Frank, saying shame on Mexico. Yes, shame on Mexico, but shame on every other country, every other nationality, everyone who has gone to a sports event, gotten drunk, and acted really stupid. and I think that speaks for everybody. Tommaso Mark saying, I have Sergio and Davidson. Have Sergio and Davidson fought before? If not, I'd like to see that. Someone who is instant office will push Sergio because besides the Benavidez win, he's clearly talented but not impressed. I do not believe Sergio Pettis and Figueiredo, man, I know I butchered that, have fought before, but I like that fight a lot. I really like that fight a whole lot. And let's just do a little checking around here. Let's see here. Where's Sergio Pettis on this card? Okay. Yeah, I don't believe he's fought Figueiredo. No, he definitely has not. So where am I at? Why is my computer acting stupid right now? There we go. Let me see if Figueiredo is booked right now. Oh yes, he's fighting Tim Elliott in October. You can give Sergio the winner of that. I'm okay with that fight. And we didn't even talk about certain. Y'all got some good questions. Y'all got me going out of order, but y'all got some good questions. So we'll table that. We'll come back. All right, so let's talk about this Irene Aldana and Vanessa Melo fight. You talk about a clinic, a striking clinic. This was a class, and we got to see a master class in dominating someone with range on the feet. I think this, we knew already coming in, Aldana had a serious size advantage, more range and everything else. And definitely like the superior athlete, just physically the superior fighter. But man, I don't think we quite understood what the difference was going to be like until that first leg kick. When that first leg kick landed, it was like, damn, like we are watching something different. We're watching destruction about to unfold. And it was just like she was beating Melo to the punch every second. Like every punch got there faster. First, I want to really give a shout out to her jab. Her jab, it was nuts. Like the power in that jab, the way she just kind of stiffened out at the end of it and kept rocking her and keeping her back, nuts. Like totally nuts. I enjoyed that, man. Definitely enjoyed that. And the thing is, Melo had some moments here and there where you could see like she's got good technique. You could see things that she was doing right. But when you're facing someone with that size advantage, with that athletic advantage over you, it's really not a whole lot you can do. And especially when they have more skill in general. You know, she was able to close the distance a couple times, land a few shots, but then you'd see, I want to say this happened in the second round, where Aldana was kind of backing up, and she ate a few shots as she's backing up toward the fence, and then all of a sudden it was like she just kind of dropped back a little and cracked her with that too. You know, when you're kind of doing stuff like that, to even when you're not having success, you find it. That is some dominant shit right there. That's some amazing stuff to watch. I will say Melo deserves some credit for not getting finished in that last round, because boy, she was eating everything. She was eating everything. You saw the mixing up with the body shots. Perhaps if Aldana mixed up the body shots earlier in the fight, that would end up having more of an impact. Probably was too little too late to get the finish in that last, minute and a half or so when she really started digging to the body. But great effort. Great effort. All right, let's see here. The Martin Bravo and Steven Peterson fight. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord, please have mercy on us all. What a sensational knockout. Definitely going to be revisited when we have our knockout of the year discussions. As of now, I'd probably still say it's got to be Masvidal and Askren. But this one's going to sneak up in some conversations, man. So Martin Bravo looked incredibly sharp to start this fight. Granted, I think the pace that he was going at wasn't the most sustainable, but for the time that they spent in the cage, man, he was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. He stayed in his face, and he was laying hands on him, and it was combinations, and he's mixing things up. and it was beautiful to watch. It was like, wow, this guy, he's really putting it together, and it really felt like the home crowd in Mexico was like so behind him, and it just felt like he's just tapping into that energy. Excuse me, and like something cool was gonna happen. It really felt that way. And then in that second round, you see Peterson really getting back on his game. Getting back on his game big time. Like he did what I know you guys have heard me say a million times, technical brawling. Where he's in there in the pocket and he's throwing and stuff, but everything is still really technique wise is on point, and it doesn't become that sloppy rock'em sock'em robot thing that we tend to see with a lot of MMA brawls. So we started doing that to an extent, but it still just had this gritty, dirty feel to it. And then just when it looked like Bravo is starting to rev the engine back up and get back to taking over this fight, he kind of throws that spinning back fist out of nowhere, and Peterson counters with his own spinning back fist and broke the man's jaw. He had to have broken his jaw, and the sound in that, Jesus. What a great knockout. Definitely will be revisited at the end of the year. So, all right, let's go ahead and let me address the chat. Yeah, I'll address the chat real quick. Was that the first fight in the main card? I don't want to talk about the prelims a whole lot. You know what, the way they do these cards, man, I'm not quite sure where the prelims end and the main card begins. And yeah, that was all right. Yeah, so we're done with the main card. So we'll just open up the discussion. Let me get back to some of these. Oh, see, we got, what is this? We got some foolishness up in the chat. Yeah, we got a dumbass in the chat. Yeah, we're gonna put you on timeout, bitch. All right. So anyway, now, where are we at? Sorry, I lost my place, everybody. Off topic, but I'd like to see Aldo move up to 55 or fight Josh Emmett. Thoughts? Yes. I've been wanting to see Aldo move up to 155 for quite some time. I don't know if you guys remember this. I know I've said this on the show before, at least said it on the trenches a lot. I wanted to see Aldo versus Eddie Alvarez. That would have been the fight to make, but of course that ain't happening as Alvarez is in one. But good thoughts. I mean, Josh Emmett sounds like a good fight. That's yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, are we thinking of Josh Emmett as a true title contender? That's the question to ask in that case, because I would avoid putting Aldo against the true title contenders unless Max Holloway is dethroned or vacates or something, because you don't want Aldo just picking off contenders. Let's see, what else? Doesn't remember saying Esparza versus Grasso had a hidden arm throw in it. Yes, it did. It sure did. And it didn't actually result in a back take. So, good on Esparza for that. Peterson might have just got Bravo cut tonight. Rob Iman, notorious with the cuts. Now, let's take a look here and see where homie... because he's, what's he doing in the UFC right now? Yeah, wow, I did not realize this. Now a 3-fight losing streak in the UFC. He's 1-3 in the UFC. Yeah, he might be Splitsville now. But once again, this is going to depend on what the UFC's plans are in Mexico. Now they've already committed. If I'm not mistaken, I remember it being at a press conference. Dana White was at the podium and he said that the Mexico Performance Institute was going to, they were going to break ground on it, I think, ahead of this event. I think to coincide with this event, they were going to break ground on that. So obviously the push from Mexico is very strong. If the push for Mexico is that strong and you're still just kind of forming the pieces of legit fighters from Mexico that are competing at a UFC level, yeah, Bravo isn't exactly got the best record in the promotion, but he puts on action fights. Like, he's a guy who goes out there and just does it all. He puts it all on the line. So you do want a guy like that, especially the way the Mexican combat sport fan base responds to the brawl, to the chaos, to the confusion, to the wild punching exchanges, judging by the boxers that have made their name from Mexico. Let's see here. Where are we at? Carrie Giant Squid Lip saying Esparza's arm should get 5K limb of the night. Man, oh man. How crazy is it that that Esparza was able to keep fighting with her arm bent like that? I can't remember seeing anything like that since Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey in was it their second fight where her arm got really bent crazy and like Ronda bent it and then started trying to twist it a little bit. Yeah, so man, it's a lot of little extra in her stocking for that one. In her Christmas stocking stuffer right there. You need that extra check. Need your help, Frank. I would never pay to see a UFC event. Okay. Congrats. Whatever, dude. You're a joke. When was the last time someone threw things onto the field in NFL, NBA, or Major League Baseball? Well, you must be really fucking stupid. You must not have been to a football game and seen the fights that break out in the stands. I've seen them plenty of times. You must not remember the big brawl in Detroit when fans were throwing shit at the players and the players decided to go in and punch their lights out. You must not have seen all the fights at Major League Baseball games and all the crazy. And plus, have you seen the size of a baseball field, you fucking dummy? Have you seen the size of a baseball field? How many beers are going to make it down to the field, dipshit? You seen? Well, y'all some stupid motherfuckers saying all that stupid shit. All right. Cole saying, bro, were you the one watching that? And he's convinced UFC has interviewed some of the top names sport. Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Cole, for coming to my defense on that. Hugo Allen Rawson, do you know if Anthony Pettis is going to fight Gregor Gillespie? I mean, if I'm Anthony Pettis, that's not the fight to take. That is not the fight to take, man. That is a horrific style matchup. Horrific style matchup. But for Gregor Gillespie, makes a lot of sense. Gillespie seems to be getting quite the grassroots push. It seems like every chat that I've done lately, from trenches to this, to like couple shows that I've guested on in the past couple months or so, Gregor Gillespie has been getting a lot of talk. So yeah, there's a grassroots support of him, and understandably so. He might be the future of this division. Doesn't even remember saying Davidson's raw athleticism will be a big problem. Sergio isn't the most athletic guy in the division. That is true. He isn't the most athletic guy in the division, but he's also one of the most fundamentally sound. And I know we don't think of the name Pettis and fundamentally sound due to his big brother flipping off the cage and all that crazy stuff. But Sergio is the much more like meat and potatoes, traditional combinations, and gonna do classic basic work in the fight, much more so than his brother. And I think he just has enough of the flair to kind of throw Davidson off with the timing, and that's really going to be key, timing. Because yes, he will be at a severe athletic disadvantage. Timing could save him though. Wow. Okay, this guy is a moron, and you, sir, are on timeout as well. Dipshit. Okay, now let's move on. Where did we leave off on the chat? Tommaso Mark saying Irene showed great poise, unlike in the Raquel fight. She learned from it seems. Agreed, because when you are dominating somebody, it isn't necessarily the permission slip to just go ballistic and just unload. It's not. It's definitely not. Sometimes you need to be more measured. Now, she might have been able to uptick the aggression a bit more. Maybe, like I said earlier, the body shots, the shot selection could have set up a finish later on in the fight. And, if she had to run that one back, I'm sure she'd do a couple little things different that could result in the finish. But I don't think you can ask for a better performance. I really don't. The only thing you can ask for is a finish. And normally the finish is more just about us getting that visceral moment. It's not necessarily about one fighter being better than the other. That's very rarely it. It's normally about us and our enjoyment for that finish. So with that in mind, Irene showed great composure in that fight. She didn't get too excited, and she maintained her game plan. She stuck to it and got the desired result. Doesn't remember saying, but it was Melo, perfect showcase fight. Can't do that versus better fighters. Agreed. Melo definitely is not the toughest of opposition that you can put in front of her, but it means something. Like when you put lesser opposition in front of somebody, they're supposed to dominate them, and when they do that, you got to give them credit for doing what they were supposed to do. Granted, we might think less of it, but if they do exactly what they're supposed to do, that deserves a pat on the back, and I think we'll be right to give her a pat on the back for this one. Doesn't even remember saying Peterson got that Goga Shamatov spinning spin counter specialty. That finish was nuts. Tommaso saying Angela Hill looked good tonight, like a prime old Alan Joban out there. We did not talk about Angela Hill's fight. Let me go to my notes for Angela Hill's fight. I didn't realize how active she's been. I didn't even realize that she has been so active. So let me make sure that I've got my numbers correct on this, because she's fought 4 times this year. I believe it's been. 4 times this year. That's crazy. That is crazy. And her first fight was in March. So it's like she's had this spurt of activity in the past several months. She looked incredible in this. And it's also, I think I just mentioned about sticking to a game plan and how important that is. Angela Hill did the damn thing in sticking to her game plan. She made sure that she stayed composed, because Carnelossi, sure I screwed that up. Carnelossi was very, very adamant about turning this fight ugly, of staying in her face and just throwing bombs and hoping to land, and really just trying to make her uncomfortable and make sure she took her kicks out of the matter. She really, now please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember Angela Hill throwing too many kicks. I don't remember that many kicks being thrown, but she handled her with the hands. A lot of her slip counters looked good. There was one where she kind of slipped out, came back with the uppercut that was nice. I love seeing the sequence like that. And of course, Angela Hill being a native of PG County, Maryland, my hometown, always going to big her up, always going to show her much love. So shout out to Angela Hill. Also, legit one of the nicest people in mixed martial arts that I've ever met. She's legit nice person. It's good to see her get a win. Now, I joked about this on Twitter, but man, if you're Otto Wallen and you saw the fight get stopped on that cut, which was a nasty cut, man, you got to be pissed off. You got to be pissed off after that monstrosity on Tyson Fury's face last week, and they let that fight go, and Wallen ends up losing the decision. Yeah, man, you got to be pissed off on that. But, those elbows were quite sharp. Let's see here. Kerry Giant Squid Lip, which I'll never get over that name, says, if you're moving from tonight's fights, Gaethje puts Conor in a body bag, right? Maybe. I think that fight could go either way. It depends on what version of Conor we see. Conor McGregor is, he gets a lot of hate, and understandably so, because he hasn't exactly been the best of human beings lately, between punching old men and throwing dollies through buses. But at his best, Conor McGregor is one of the best fighters ever. At his best, from a technical standpoint, that man is ridiculous. I still say that UFC 205, where he demolished Eddie Alvarez, is the single greatest performance in mixed martial arts history. I wholeheartedly stand firm in that, and the only other possibility that I will really entertain is Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin. But for my money, Conor versus Eddie was the perfect performance. And the thing about that, man, the Conor that fought that night, I think he smokes Gaethje. I think he smokes him. And I don't think it could be much of a contest. But is that Conor still around? And Gaethje has improved so much. I'll put it this way: the longer the fight goes, the less likely Conor wins that. If Conor wins that, he's probably coming out there, one of the few guys that comes out even faster than Gaethje and sparks him in the first round and a half. And keep in mind, Gaethje is very hittable. He's a guy who has no problem taking a punch. Problem is when you fight like that against a power puncher, as Donald Cerrone learned against Justin Gaethje, like if you start giving up free shots to a guy who has the power and or precision to put you out, you're inviting trouble by allowing those shots to get there. You don't want to give them anything for free. And I think Gaethje will give shots free to McGregor. McGregor at his best finishes that. But whether they are in the same ballpark now, I can't say. I just want to see what he has next to offer. Let's see here. What else we got? Martin Bravo and Polo Reyes should be cut. Rob, man, you ruthless with the cuts. Martin Bravo, yeah, like Martin Bravo, as I said before, is a guy you might want to keep around depending on what you're trying to do in Mexico. That's really the key thing there. And same thing with Polo Reyes. Really the exact same thing with him. And he's also on a 3-fight losing streak in the UFC. So it gives you something to think about. But if they're trying to keep that push in Mexico, you need these guys that are going to go in there and die on their shield. You need them. You just need those guys there. All right. Kerry Giant, I can't even say the full name no more. Like that name is wild, man. If main event is going to end in no contest at the 50 seconds due to eye poke, at least Bisping got to drop some hilarity. I'm not an opticianist, but I have a little experience. I actually did not even hear that. I was almost crying that the fight ended the way it did. So I didn't even hear what Bisping said. But let's talk about Bisping tonight, because Bisping on the commentary was wild. And not necessarily good wild either. It was like, what are you talking about, bro? I normally really like Michael Bisping on commentary. I think he's very good. And Brendan Fitzgerald is not my favorite, but he does the job. But man, the commentary was not the business for me, at least. Like, they just kind of went on some weird tangents. Bisping was talking about enemas and playing Street Fighter and all this. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But yeah, that was some wild commentary. Oh, let's see here. What else? What round did Shane Burgos finish Americani in? Ugh. I haven't even really started trying to scout that fight. Tim, also, I will get back to you on that one. I want to look at that, but my first instinct says Shane Burgos wins that fight. John Thunderhead Chow saying, big fan, Anthony. Just want to say that I've enjoyed your MMA on point videos. Keep up the great writing, homie. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Definitely appreciate the kind words. Haven't had any personal stuff where it's kind of kept me from doing some script writing for them for the past couple weeks or so, but I'll be back on it soon. Hopefully some more good videos coming your way from my collaborations with MMA on point. So looking forward to that. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your support, my man. Designated member saying Gaethje's old bull guard could be really good at navigating Conor's counters. It could be. It very well could be. But one thing that we've seen with Conor at his best is that when he sees what your counters are, he counters them already. Like Conor plays an incredible chess game with people when he's fighting, and that's something that people don't seem to recognize. Like he starts solving the puzzle as it's going on at a frightening pace, like the way he can take in information. If you just listen to the man talk about the technical aspects of a fight and him analyze and break down a fighter, and it's so spot on most of the time. Now, granted, his recapping of the Khabib fight leaves a lot to be desired, but there's obvious bias there. But when you start listening to the way he sees a fight from the X's and O's standpoint, and you see him at his best solve things, he'd find his way around that very quickly, very, very quickly. Conor versus Eddie and Anderson versus Griffin were really good style matchups, though. Not that impressive when analyzed. Doesn't even remember. I know we see eye to eye on a lot of things. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one. Now, the Anderson Griffin thing, that would seem to be a much more favorable style matchup. But you still, when you start talking about guys who are champions or former champions and stuff, yes, styles make fights, but if you're good enough to win a belt, you're pretty damn good. So I think we should hold wins over those guys to a higher standard. So, for instance, Conor McGregor fighting Eddie Alvarez, while Alvarez may have been a more favorable style matchup than, say, Khabib, had he had the belt at the time, he didn't have the belt at the time. And whether that's for promotional reasons or whatever the case may be, that's what it was. He went after the guy who had the belt, and he smoked him. And everything that Alvarez tried to do, he couldn't do. He paid for everything that he tried to do and failed at. That was marquee performance. Rob saying Gaethje will try to out-wrestle Conor. He might, but that's always been the smartest thing for him to do, and he's just never done it. So I don't see why he would do it this time. Especially a fight that he could possibly win on the feet. So, yeah. All right, Rob Armin saying, try Bisping with John Gooden. Yes, I like that combination. John Gooden is so slept on. John Gooden is an incredible commentator. I love him and Dan Hardy, and I wish they used those two more. The Gooden and Bisping combo might be pretty dope as well. Gooden, he has fun with it too. Like, he's not as super serious as John Anik. Granted, John Anik can loosen up sometimes, but John Gooden has a good time while he's being serious, and it's pretty cool. I like his style of commentary. Tommaso saying Bisping had a couple of shots of tequila before the show. Definitely wouldn't shock me one bit. He probably was slamming them in between rounds. Fitzgerald's "You're not known for your grappling" was a thoroughly hilarious stinger. That was kind of funny. That was cold blooded, man. Because Bisping could grapple. Bisping was not a bad grappler, so that was pretty cold blooded. Especially, man, Fitzgerald, man, he just started training. Like, I just saw him tweet out a picture with his first, like, gi in the white belt, like, a couple days ago or something. Like, he literally just started. And granted, I'm a white belt as well in BJJ. I'm trash on the ground. I'm still very much learning and very much getting thrown around and choked out in training on a regular basis. At least when I have been able to train, I've been injured, so I've been out of training for a little bit. But, yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, you get messed up. Get messed up as a white belt, but one day I'll get that stripe. One day. Let's see. How many people lost money betting against Paul Craig tonight? Never again. Yeah, see, that's why I say leave the betting on fights alone, man. Paul Craig has let a lot of people lose money, man. Paul Craig is perpetually has just stolen your money if you bet against him. So, yeah, man, I really like. I thought that Kennedy Nechirou was gonna beat him, and yeah, that didn't go too well for me. Alonzo Minifield was able to do it, but still, I just left that alone, man. I just left that alone. I don't bet on fights. Let's see what else we got. Tommaso saying Conor before the Floyd fight was the best fighter on the planet to me. Same here. Wholeheartedly agree with that. O'Doyle Rules. Damn it, I love that name. A deep dive in Adam Sandler trivia. You, sir, get a kung fu bow for that. Saying, is there a pic of his eye after the fight? Looked like he got like his cat swiped him. Yeah, it looked like that alien cat that scratched Nick Fury and Captain Marvel. That's what that looked like. But I don't know. I haven't seen any pics yet. I don't have I should have my Twitter feed up on one of these screens. Maybe I'll just put it up now. But I haven't seen any of that. I will look for it. But yeah, I'll look for it. Let's see here. Tommaso saying, think about this. Conor KO'd Eddie, who's been finished by KO once before. Yep. And believe Chandler's top 5 more. Yes, Tommaso, you are echoing my sentiments. Yeah, DSU's Bulgar versus Connor. Oh, see, he's still deep diving on the Connor thing. That's what's up. Tommaso saying, "And you're not trash, bro." Thank you, Tommaso. I needed that because I've been slandered on my own channel, and fuck those guys for trying to slander me on my own channel. But it's all good. It's all good. Okay, now Lanny from Canada saying, "I bet $100 on Maine to be no contest with one Bigley." I don't know about that, Laney. I sensed some sarcasm there. But if you did, I hope you got paid out there, brother. Hope you got paid out. That's what's up. All right, so I guess that should wrap things up because unless you guys got more questions, go ahead, drop them in the chat. But in the meantime, I'll just give you all the breakdown of what I got coming up. Ask Ant, the mailbag column, should be coming out. The publishing schedules got kind of jacked up, so last week's didn't come out, so I guess they'll just lump it on to this week's, which isn't out yet, because I haven't submitted it. Just doing some house and baby stuff, trying to get ready for that. The normal fight work schedule has kind of devolved just a bit temporarily, but anyway, so the good, bad, and the ugly, the post-fight column will be going live tomorrow. Breaking down the action that we just saw UFC Mexico. So for the good, bad, and ugly segments, if you got any ideas, go ahead, tweet them at me at Ant Walker MMA. Of course, you see that on the screen. So any particular things that stood out to you, good, bad, or ugly, please just go ahead, drop me a line on Twitter, and perhaps that'll be what I write about, because I have no idea what I'm going to write about until I turn this off and get to work. What else we got? Let's see. Are you going to make a Spider-Man rant? I could go on a Spider-Man rant, but I don't know what's going on with this Spider-Man and MCU thing. I have no idea what they're doing now, because apparently now Apple might be buying Sony, which means if they do, then the rights to Spider-Man revert back to Marvel, and then Spider-Man's back in the MCU, and that's it. But I'm more concerned about Apple buying Sony, because that means only like 5 companies will control the entire world. So that's more troubling. That's really scary to think about. It's all right. Now, what else I got coming up? We got some activity on the chat, so we'll stick around for a second here. Rob, I'm saying, see you next week after some matinee UFC on the West Coast. Yes. So next week I will be covering Bellator 228 live at the Forum. So I'm going to be on site at Bellator, so there won't be a walk of shame for that. I will hit you guys with some content on SureDog.com. Preview and post-fight show should be going up. I think I'll be joined by Matt Hunter, who of course makes appearances on this channel, the founder, host of Mixed Combat Radio. So yeah, check for us on the scene at the Forum. And what else? Unleashed. I mean, that's a working title. That title sucks. Let us know and we will change it. But the panel discussion show is for the Walkout Network now, so you can check out the first episode of that. That should be on the list. So please go ahead, like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe, share it, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. It certainly helps, and I definitely appreciate everyone participating. What else we got? Doesn't even saying reaction to RT Media calling Nunes a transsexual. Well, people say some dumb shit. Somebody. I did see something about that. Some dumbass. Once again, you wouldn't say that to Nunez's face. So yeah, they need to knock that shit off. Rob Ironman saying I might be on Discord later tonight. If you are on Discord, yes, everyone, check out Rob Ironman's comments. I know he's gonna drop some jewels on us on the comment section of the articles that go up on SureDog.com. So shout out to you, Rob. Appreciate your participation. Same thing, you, Tommaso, Kerry, designated member, Lana from Canada, the Kerry Squid, MMA Watchdog, I see you too. O'Doyle Rules with the dope ass name, John Thunderhead Chow, Cole Shelton, the Judas of Sherdog. What else? Well, actually, I blocked them dudes, so they gets no love. They gets no more love. Hugo Allen Rosen. Yes, so everybody, Leon Dyer, Pierce Hobb, everybody who participated in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping the conversation moving. And we're gonna have some more stuff on the Walkout Network. So the panel discussion show was there. We got this, the Walk of Shame. So I'm trying to collaborate with a couple people, bring you guys some more content. So yes, like, subscribe, do all that. And you know what you got to do. You have got to stay beautiful. You've got to stay positive. No matter how much beer is thrown your direction because you got raked in the eye, you've got to stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.